hearing all sorts of views about the country. I think that's very. It would help for people to make the effort to travel more around the country. Now, a lot of people, some people in Colombo, people here can afford to do so. But one thing that always struck me in traveling around the country was to see these minivans or villages going from one place to another on day trips, on multi-day trips, for week-long trips. I'd like to see much more of that. And I think you can only start with reconciliation when you get to know others from different backgrounds better. That does sound very wishy-washy, but let me leave it there.
And I agree, and I encourage all my colleagues, especially the younger colleagues, to travel and see the country. We have one question here, we have a few more, but we may not be able to take everything, but Razin's around, so you can also speak.
Why is that identity, and sort of go back to your half-half, I'm saying background half-half, and I wondered, have you ever had problems in convincing people that it was Sri Lankan? It's just that I cannot convince people that it's Sri Lankan, even though I speak Sinhalese fluently. And I just wondered, have you ever had that issue? Part of people know this, even though you were, I mean, I had the same problem. My relations obviously don't Sri Lankan, my good friends that I grew up with too, but nobody else didn't accept it.
Sorry. I think we're on the same wavelength. Yes. My experience is very mixed. Maybe it's more mixed than yours. I think my own family here always accepted me as Sri Lankan, but maybe a little bit different. I write in my book that I felt as a child that my uncles and aunts, my father of course, and my cousins were all Sri Lankan. I felt Sri Lankan, but somewhat. And then later when I was in the UK, I felt gradually a bit more British, but never completely so. So that disposition has remained. In terms of the way others see me in Sri Lanka, broadly speaking, I feel accepted wherever I go. But yes, I have encountered people, particularly people who might be strangers initially, who he can't be Sri Lankan. And then when I make an effort with my broken Sinhalese, it does break the ice, more so outside Colombo. But there's still that, I think, that distance because of the color of my skin and maybe the way I speak. And it sounds like you had that experience. In the UK, I think it's similar. I know very few people who think I'm 100% British among the Britons I know. So it's mirrored by my experience over there. But I think the warmth of acceptance and welcome, I feel much more here than I do over there.
We had about 3 questions here. We'll try to take all of them. Ganesh.
Thank you. Did you have any personal challenges in shifting from looking at political economy analysis to travel? I think that's the first question. And then what advice would you have for aspiring travel writers in Sri Lanka, the young people in this audience?
Thank you, Ganesh. Yes, well, this book took 10 years to research and write. I mean, I had a full-time job in Singapore as a professor, but I had the luxury of plenty of free time as a professor as well. But the researching in a different way, that was the first challenge. So spending more time on the road and talking to people in a more open way, if you like, pretending to be more of a journalist than an academic. um, reading much more widely. So that was a challenge. The bigger challenge was actually switching my mode of writing, because I'd been trained to write therapy, which is the way academics are trained. And it took a decade and 3 drafts to learn to write like a normal human being. And a writer now, there are plenty of writers who write therapy as well. And that's of course a matter of taste. I mean, I tend to prefer quite plain writing. My role models are people like George Orwell and V.S. Naipaul, and the Russian greats of the 19th century. But learning to emulate them, find my own style, was very difficult. It was quite a painful process. But hopefully, stood me in good stead, not just for the writing of this book, but for the one that's coming up. Advice to aspiring travel writers, well, first advice is read, please read my book as well, but do read travel writing classics. What one would consider the books of travel writing that really endure. Talk to more experienced travel writers. And then start traveling yourself, initially in your own country. I mean, it could be to a different part of Colombo that one might be unfamiliar with. And take detailed notes. I tend to spend about an hour at the end of every travel day writing up my notes, and then trying to decipher my illegible handwriting when it comes to translating it into chapter drafts.
So we have a quick question, if anyone has an quick answer. So there's a hand, I think, Sukanya. There were a few more, but maybe they didn't wait till. Can we get a mic quickly? I'm sorry, but okay, very quickly.
So, Raji, where's home at the end of this?
Where is home? Yeah, I think home is different places, but Sri Lanka is probably feels more like home than anywhere else. Let's put it that way. And that's how the book ends.
Thank you.